No, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and we are going to talk about professional wrestling because this is a podcast about professional wrestling. Or at least we talk about the stuff that we think is interesting, that is newsworthy, that is news breaking, and we give a little analysis on the side. So how about that? Why don't you stick around for the next couple of hours? Because that's what we're going to be talking about here today. And on youtube.com. We do this on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. When I say we do this, I mean we record this every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, live. So you can come and join us live. You get to the full experience, the full recording, not just this stuff that I piece together. No, there's some stuff, some discussion that goes on that doesn't make it to the final cut here. So come and join us. It's a good time. Nice little community, nice people. You like nice people. You like nice things. You deserve nice things. I should be part of those nice things, or at least my podcast should, that you can listen to live. And you can also listen to on demand, as you're doing right here, or you can even listen to on your favorite podcast application. So let's run it down. Let's run this down then. How about a like if you're watching this on YouTube right now? How about a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts? Or a 5-star rating on Spotify if you're listening to this on Spotify? Look, any love that you can show would be tremendous, and I would appreciate it. That being said, I would also appreciate you joining the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. The link is in the description. I just learned words. The link is in the description, so we'd love to have you join our little neck of the woods down there. And yeah, so look, that about covers that part that I say every week. But I want to underscore the fact that this week, starting this weekend on the 20th, I am beginning my G1 Climax 34 daily coverage. The tournament starts this week in New Japan on as I said, on July 20th on the Saturday. So throughout the entire tournament, I will be here every day breaking down the action, giving you results, analysis, recaps, the whole 9 yards. Great stuff. I'm so excited to get into it, and I hope you are too. And if you're not into it yet, I'd highly suggest that you listen to the preview show that I recorded with Chris Samza of sportofprowrestling.com. sportofprowrestling.com. He joined me a couple of days ago to break down the entire G1, and it's a great preview show. It's the one that you need. It's the one that's missing in your life. We talk about everything from going back to 2 blocks, a field of 20, to people who didn't make the cut, to the surprises that have already been happening even before the tournament starts, to, of course, predictions and thoughts and who we feel is going to make it. So it's complete. It's good. Chris is a tremendous guest. Of course, join me and him. It should be available. It is available, in fact, on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. So it's already right there. And if you've already listened to it, thank you. Yeah, so listen, we're going to get into it. A bit of a slow week of news, honestly. Not anything really earth-shattering has been happening in pro wrestling, but nonetheless, I managed to talk my way into hours of content. So, we'll be talking about Stephanie Vaquer. We've got a bunch of little newsy notes happening here and there, and reviews of New Japan CMLL Fantasticamania USA, and as well as Marigold Summer Destiny. That's what's waiting for you, as well as a very brief preview of TNA Slammiversary, which is happening this upcoming weekend. So thank you everyone for being here. Let's get right to it. We begin the festivities here tonight on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show by sharing an update in regards to the Janel Grant lawsuit filed against Vince McMahon, WWE, and John Laurinaitis. Today, Brandon Thurston over at WrestleNomics posted an update. If you are joining us live or on video anyway, on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, or on Spotify as well, because Spotify does support video. I've got the article pulled up here so you can all see it with me. But the article reads, Janel Grant files petition for records against wellness doctor said to treat WWE talent and employees. And as you can see, it was posted today, July 16, 2024, which is when we are recording the podcast. Lawyers for Janel Grant filed a pre-action discovery petition today against Dr. Carlin Kolker and his clinic, Peak Wellness Inc. Grant, who is a former WWE employee, says that beginning around November 2019, she was sent at the direction of Vince McMahon to Kolker's clinic in Greenwich, Connecticut, where she received treatments that weren't disclosed to her, including pills and IV infusions. Grant says when she asked Kolker about the substance of the pills she was being given, Kolker allegedly pushed back and questioned whether Grant trusted him. Yeah, that's something you always like to hear from your physician, right? Don't worry about it. It's fine. That's always something you want to hear. This is what Grant's attorneys wrote. On multiple visits, Dr. Kolker prescribed Ms. Grant with adrenal trays or adrenal supplement trays provided by his office and instructed her, to take the unmarked pills daily. Dr. Kolker did not explain the substances, dosages, or the purpose of the pills to Ms. Grant beyond purportedly addressing her symptoms of fatigue. When Ms. Grant asked Dr. Kolker about the substance of the supplement trays, and specifically which substances caused her to experience nausea, he responded with pushback about trust, including, this is a quote, "If you don't trust me, we have bigger problems." That was the quote. Man, just don't ask questions. Just don't ask questions, right, little lady? Because if you don't trust me, we got ourselves some issues. According to Grant's petition, Kolker, quote unquote, routinely treats employees and talent of World Wrestling Entertainment. Grant is seeking medical records related to the sex trafficking lawsuit she filed earlier this year against Vince McMahon, WWE, and John Laurinaitis. The paper records the clinic has provided up to this point are incomplete and inaccurate, Grant's attorneys say. For example, the petition states, there are billing records that do not have a corresponding medical record, medical records that do not have a corresponding billing account, inconsistent billing rates, and double charges. Grant alleges that a Peak Wellness employee was involved, quote, in several instances of sexual abuse against Ms. Grant by Mr. McMahon, as further described in Ms. Grant's federal complaint. Of course, Brandon here's not leaving us hanging here. We can flash back to the complaint. The federal complaint filed in January described, among other allegations of sexual abuse, that McMahon recruited a physical therapist whose identity is obscured as physical therapist from an unnamed clinic referred to only as alternative clinic to participate in threesomes involving McMahon and Grant. Grant said McMahon pressured her into these and other sex acts. So, if you recall, in the complaint originally, there were a lot of names that were redacted. There were a lot of names that were redacted, right? We had Corporate Officer 1, Corporate Officer 2, and 3, and there was also physical therapist, and there is also someone who is known as celebrity doctor as well. And here we're going to get to that in a second. So these identities are still It's still unclear as to who they are. Grant's federal complaint also alleged she was sex trafficked under the control of McMahon. She says she was sexually abused by McMahon and Laurinaitis, and that WWE was supportive of McMahon's relationship with her. In the January complaint, Grant alleged that McMahon urged to see a physician who is anonymized in the complaint as quote-unquote celebrity doctor, who was said to operate out of the anonymized alternative clinic. Now, this is an important part of the little discourse here, folks. We could not confirm if the individual referred to as the celebrity doctor in the Grant complaint is in fact Coulter, and if the facility referred to as alternative clinic is in fact Peak Wellness. Grant alleged in January the following, quote, "After the initial visit, it became apparent to Ms. Grant that McMahon and Celebrity Doctor wanted Ms. Grant to remain in the care of Celebrity Doctor's practice, and Ms. Grant felt pressure to do so," unquote. The parties in the federal case agreed in May to put the lawsuit on hold pending a federal investigation. A spokesperson for McMahon took issue with Grant taking legal action on Coulter while the federal lawsuit is on hold. Quote, "Ms. Grant's petition for pre-action discovery against Dr. Coulter is a direct violation of the court-ordered stay and nothing more than an attempt to generate publicity on her false allegations and to harass people connected to Mr. McMahon, who is being sued by Ms. Grant in a separate matter," unquote. This comes from a spokesperson for McMahon, who spoke to WrestleNomics, Brandon Thurston specifically, Tuesday afternoon in response to a request for comment for this report. The facts are that, this is the quote that continues, "The facts are that Ms. Grant told Mr. McMahon that she was fatigued and asked him to recommend a doctor. Ms. Grant called Dr. Coulter and became a patient of his. Her statement in the filing is inconsistent with her prior remarks. Ms. Grant never had anything but good things to say about the doctor when speaking to McMahon and others about him," unquote. I mean, listen, if you are in a position where you are being abused, where you're not quite sure who to trust either, where there's a lot of, there's a lot of hoopla, I guess, in that regard, where you're not quite sure who to turn to. And of course, you're not going to go around willy-nilly talking ill about someone who you feel you've been pressured into consulting with, right? You're not going to go around and tell Vince, no, he stinks, especially if Vince is, as he was described in the lawsuit. Now, I'm not saying this is real. This is exactly what happened, but I think there is a fair argument to say she never said anything bad to Vince about it. I mean, first of all, he's being sued, so he's not going to corroborate. Second of all, even if she never did speak up to Vince, you can understand that maybe she felt threatened enough to not, she didn't feel comfortable enough to come forward with this kind of stuff. So it makes sense. Then, of course, Janel Grant's attorney, Ann Callis, responded to WrestleNomics and to this statement from McMahon's spokesperson, saying, quote, "We did not violate a federal stay by filing a state action against a non-defendant," unquote. I mean, that makes sense, right? I don't like, we sent, I mean, I am no lawyer, and I feel like I'm discovering more and more things about the how legalities happen in the United States specifically. And this motion, that they called a motion to a pre-action discovery petition. Jesus, like I don't know. I don't know how those things work. This is the first time I ever hear of a pre-discovery petition, pre-action discovery petition. I can't even get it right. So, I can only like sort of shrug my shoulders and go, wow, sure. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? She's trying to, she's taking action on someone who's not a defendant in the case. That's fine. I mean, I don't think but then again, I'm not a legal expert, and maybe there's some validity to that. I don't know. I really don't know. So there you go. Let's see. This is where I just lost my spot here. Here we go. WrestleNomics sent a message requesting comment to email addresses believed to belong to Coker and Peak Wellness, but have yet to receive a response. The new document filed today in Superior Court of Connecticut alleges that Coker knew about the non-disclosure agreement between Grant and McMahon, which is among the issues at the center of the federal lawsuit. Quote, Dr. Coker had personal knowledge of the circumstances surrounding a purported non-disclosure agreement at issue in the federal action, Grant's attorneys wrote in the new filing. Grant also says Coker recommended Grant work with Coker's attorney, who helped her negotiate the NDA with McMahon in early 2022. This claim is consistent with what Grant alleged in January about the unidentified celebrity doctor, when Grant claimed that McMahon, quote, approved of Ms. Grant asking celebrity doctor for an attorney referral. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you work? Why would you do that? It's kind of wild to me. So we're talking a lot about we're talking a lot about Coker here, Carlin Coker, and I thought that more people knew who he was. Like when we started, when the news broke today, and I was talking about it, amongst other people, I thought that a lot of people knew who he was because he has been on television multiple times on different television shows, and he's been touted by certain celebrities as well for the help that they get for getting into shape for a role or so on and so forth. I thought more people knew who he was, but apparently he's not. So Brandon gave, again, a little more context here. Coker is a doctor who is popular with celebrities and professional athletes. Published news stories indicate he's worked with Justin Bieber, Jeremy Piven, NBA center Kristaps Porzingis, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, and NBA Hall of Famer Shaquille O'Neal. He even worked with Paul Rudd for Ant-Man, if I'm not mistaken, getting Paul Rudd into shape. Coker appeared in a 2007 reality show with O'Neal, Shaq's Big Challenge on NBC, that addressed challenges with childhood obesity. The official website for Peak Wellness describes its facility as offering, quote, traditional medical care along with advanced diagnostics, functional medicine, naturopathy, physical medicine, anti-aging, and aesthetics. So there you go. Thank you, Chris, in the chat for confirming that I got Kristaps Porzingis' name correct. I don't watch basketball. I don't know. Thank you for making me feel good about myself. So that's the long and short of it, and that's obviously that's directly the article on WrestleNomics, which of course you should go check out. You should read. You should follow. You should subscribe to the Patreon. Right now, in the case of, and I say it every time, but it bears repeating. Right now, when it comes to this case, to the Janel Grant lawsuit, there is no one in wrestling media right now who is doing a better job at reporting on the circumstances, on the events, and keeping everything level. No one is doing it better, more so than Brandon Thurston and John Pollock over at Post Wrestling, bar none. So it's money well spent if you become members of the Patreon. because I think it's, this is the kind of journalism that you need to be supporting. When it comes to professional wrestling media. So this is where we're at right now. Again, another little wrinkle. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. A lot of people immediately jump to the conclusion that Coker was the guy, was the guy that was named that was having threesomes with Janel Grant and Vince McMahon. But no, there's another party in here, and a physical therapist who is not the same as the celebrity doctor, who I think while there hasn't been an actual confirmation, I mean, everything seems to be lining up here. And I even do believe that, he was, he's been working with Vince and so on and so forth. I think there's a direct correlation here, especially in the type of business that WWE does. Those and you see the wrestlers, and sometimes you're like, all of a sudden they go away for a few months, they come back, they're yoked. You're like, whoa, holy shit! Like, there's some enhancements going on. Maybe this is the guy supplying it, right? I don't think it's anything. We're not here to assume that it's something as cloak and dagger as the steroids situation was back in the 80s, the 90s with WWF. I don't think it's anything like that, but there's some through lines that can be created here that you can just put together in your mind. Of course, there's a lot of tangible facts, like Brandon mentioned in the article. He cannot even confirm that the celebrity doctor is Coker. But the fact that Grant is reaching out in the what is it called again? The the pre-action discovery petition. The fact that she's reaching out to get paperwork, data, whatever it is, from Coker at Peak Wellness, I think there's a 1+1 situation that can happen here. The physical therapist is mentioned to have been an employee of the alternative clinic, and the alternative clinic just might be Peak Wellness. So he might just be working for Carlin Coker. We're just gonna have to see how this all shakes down. I don't know what this means for the federal case, for the lawsuit. I don't know what this means for the lawsuit. I don't know what it means for the federal case that the government, that the Department of Justice is bringing forward. Like, I don't know how this all fits in, because, like I said, I'm not a lawyer. I'll have to have someone explain this to me. I'm not going to pretend oh yes, this petition that was filed today will have certainly consequences because of, no, I can't. You'd see right through me regardless. You'd be like, Warren, you're full of it. Just stop. Cut it out. Warren, that's enough. Stop. So, as I mentioned a little earlier, the past week in pro wrestling has not necessarily been a cornucopia of news like we've experienced in previous weeks, where there's just stuff upon stuff, and things are happening. This week was not the case. However, there was a story that did capture the imagination, which I think is putting it mildly. But okay, how about we do that? Captured the imagination of wrestling fans pretty much everywhere, and that is the sudden departure of Stephanie Vaquer from CMLL and eventually joining WWE. Now, I did a stream last Thursday, which would be the 11th, on July 11, where it was basically still a developing story. It was a breaking story. And we were piecing a lot of things together, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna jump in here, and I'm gonna talk about it. And so we did a thing where we pieced together a lot of the elements, everything that had transpired over basically like the day. A lot of things happened last Thursday when this all came to. Of course, there was quite a few things that all came together. And I figured maybe today, for the sake of just having this on record on the podcast, and of course, sort of wrapping this situation up with some analysis, I figured we could walk down the timeline of what happened that led to at least the events that sort of heralded and led us to the departure of Stephanie Vaquer from CMLL, only to join World Wrestling Entertainment. So the first sign that we got was Stephanie Vaquer no-showing a July 6th booking for CMLL. I think it was at Arena Coliseo. I think it was their typical Saturday shows, and she no-showed. She just didn't. She didn't show up, which was curious. But a lot of people were like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." But she was not there. Now we didn't know this at the time, but it all sort of came together afterwards, where she didn't show on the July 6th CMLL show because she was very likely, again, these are reports, was very likely in Toronto for Money in the Bank, hanging out there with WWE. But again, this was not like these are things that we learn afterward. On July 7, there was a report that was published by a Mexican sports publication named Record. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it, properly in Spanish, but bear with me. This article was published saying that Vaquer had received offers from both WWE and AEW. Cubs fan over at his Lucha blog, which, by the way, should be your quintessential number one. It should be your number one resource when it comes to news regarding Lucha Libre. Like, it shouldn't be anyone else. You go to Lucha blog and you pick this up. So there's a lot of information straight off the bat that he's able to supply because Cubs covers and has been covering Lucha Libre, and he has been covering it for years, and probably better than any of the quote unquote mainstream reporters. Like, that's the guy you should turn to in these types of situations. So Lucha Blog here, reported that article and noted that while Record is a noteworthy publication, the article was written by one of their more gossipy writers. So, he was basically saying, take it with a grain of salt. We don't know exactly what the details are. Then we learned in the July 15 edition of the Wrestling Observer, right? We had learned that Vaquer had signed a deal with WWE either on July 7 or 8. And that's where, I think that's where, and I think Dave is the one who actually confirmed that, or reported that she was in Toronto and basically wrapped up the negotiations there. So she got the contract. She signed the contract either on the 7th or the 8th. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, in the Observer they said, Dave writes this, and I'll just read it verbatim. Quote, one person in WWE said she was offered a quote unquote tremendous contract on July 7 because they were aware of the AEW offer. She basically got more money than the typical NXT contract because AEW made a play for her, which obviously didn't work out. Good for her. That's honestly, I can't put that over enough. I cannot put that over enough. If she gets the offer from AEW and then she goes back to WWE and she's like, oh, brother, you know, they're offering me this. Like, are you serious or not? Because they're giving me this money. And good for her if she got something better than the typical run-of-the-mill NXT contract, which is not great from what I last heard. It's like it's a five-digit contract. No one in NXT is, you know, rolling in dough. There are exceptions, especially when it comes to main roster talent who get sent back down there. Like, of course, you know, but I mean, no one is rolling in dough in NXT, right? But it's 5-figure contracts. If she's getting more, good for her. And you know what? As much, this is the situation that happens when you have two legitimate professional wrestling organizations out there, two big time wrestling promotions when out there. The talent, this is what happens. The talent can benefit. They can play them off the other and try to get a better deal for themselves. If there's one person in town, if there's only one person in town that can provide you with a working opportunity with a good living wage, if there's only one in town, you've got no leverage. So good for her if she got out of the basic NXT bracket. Vaquer also told CMLL about this and may have directly told New Japan, or CMLL told New Japan. This is from the Observer. We're not quite sure that she had signed the contract of the 7th or the 8th. But she also said that she would not be appearing on Fantasticamania that upcoming weekend, this past weekend, but on July 13. She wouldn't be appearing on the pay-per-view or any dates around Mexico and in foreign countries, including the August 24 Rev Pro Anniversary show and other international dates that CMLL booked for her. Now, she did work the July 9 show, which is the CMLL show, right, in Guadalajara. Interestingly enough, she finished the match and she was, acting as if this was her last one. She was wrestling Tessa Blanchard and defeated Tessa, and she was taking bows. She hugged Tessa. She was blowing kisses to the crowd. She was, tapping the CMLL mat. And she was acting as if she was leaving. Again, we did not know any of this was going on. But Lucha Blog made a little tweet out of it. Like, he thought something was up. So he clipped that, put it on X, formerly Twitter, and was like, well, isn't this interesting? So this happened on the 9th. Then on the 10th, July 10, the company announced that CMLL had left the company. Put out the message both in Spanish and English. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but it's not all that long either, but nonetheless. Citing personal reasons, Stephanie Vaquer has elected to depart from the CMLL and New Japan Pro Wrestling rosters effective immediately. As a result, Vaquer will not compete in her scheduled match against Lluvia at Fantasticamania July 13 in San Jose. Furthermore, CMLL hereby announces Vaquer is stripped of both the CMLL World Women's and World Women's Tag Team Championships. Both CMLL and New Japan Pro Wrestling would like to apologize to our fans worldwide for the abrupt announcement. And that's when they announced that they were making the women's match at Fantasticamania a 3-way match to crown a new champion. So and then and then things just all started coming together then from that point on. on July 10, on the same day, on July 10, Record, the same sports publication from before, tweeted out essentially that Vaquer was leaving and was leaving for WWE. Per Lucha Blog, Vaquer had significant time left on her CMLL deal, but the company being CMLL, has been known to let people out of deals early if they receive offers from big American companies. One recent example of this would be the wrestler formerly known as Grand Metalik in WWE. But then at the same time, Grand Metalik finished up his dates, put people over, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he went out, he left the company, not necessarily in a brutal way. He finished up his dates, did what he had to do, did business the right way, and he was gone, right? Even if he still had time on his contract. There's more than enough. There's precedent for this. I'm pretty sure this is what happened with Mystico as well. Like, there's precedent for this in the past, where CMLL will just let guys go if they're heading off to the United States for a big money contract. Vaquer tweeted out that she was, quote unquote, leaving through the front door, which is a sign that she did business on the way out, that she did business right on the way out, and all was fine. Because apparently, and again, like, this is something I think that a lot of us have learned in this circumstance here, CMLL has a company insult who leave on bad terms with the company, saying that they left out the back door. But she's saying that she left through the same door. It's through the not the same door, but the right door. Later in the same day, Shawn Michaels tweeted out a welcome message to Vaquer, and it all seemed to have been coming together. Now, I said I did the stream on the 11th, but I did the stream on the 10th. I did the stream on the same day. So it was all on the 10th. This was happening, as opposed to me thinking that this was on a Thursday. It wasn't on a Thursday. It was on the Wednesday that I did the stream. Later on, Dave Meltzer provided an update for Observer subscribers. Here are some of the key elements that Dave added in regards to the departure. The situation turned into a major story over the last few days. AEW made a play for her with part of the deal that she would be able to work Fridays and other dates for CMLL, as well as her previously announced international bookings as singles and tag team champion. CMLL and New Japan were aware last week of her talks with WWE and did ask her to at least do the Fantasticamania pay-per-view in San Jose if she was going to sign with WWE, noting that they had advertised her on the show and New Japan hates false advertising. This is confirmed, they really do. CMLL wanted to drop her titles, also wanted her to drop her titles on the way out. Vaquer then decided against the AEW deal. Vaquer told CMLL and may have directly told New Japan, like we said earlier, and informed everyone that she wouldn't be doing dates, including the Rev Pro show in August. So she did work the July 9 show in Guadalajara against Tessa Blanchard for CMLL as her last night and won the match. There was a feeling that since she hadn't signed and if she wanted to go to WWE, she would have done business on the way out, essentially appearing on the pay-per-view show and dropping her titles. New Japan was upset that her appearance was advertised for 3 months, and then 5 days before the show, she pulls out. Doesn't sound like she did business, going through the front door to me. Doesn't come... That doesn't sound like someone who's doing business going out the front door. In the meantime, CMLL did not even mention Stephanie Vaquer's departure, didn't even mention her by name on their programming, or like on Informa, which is their YouTube like news wrap up, right? Their hype show, their control center, if you want. They'll have a couple of more times to address it. This is what Lucha Blog says. Whenever the new women's champion does her first interview, and whenever they decide to do what they want with the tag titles, but it's likely Vaquer no longer exists in the history of CMLL. This would not be surprising that they would just make her disappear and never speak of her again, that they take her away from any visuals that exist. WWE does that, and that's why CMLL holds a grudge. CMLL is pretty good at holding a grudge, right? Like they've erased guys like Andrade and Rush, Negro Casas. They're anyone who's done them dirty. They've been scrubbed from. They've been scrubbed from the history of CMLL. So, they're not above rewriting their history, is what I'm trying to say. So we'll see how they handle this. I believe the only mention on the Fantasticamania show of Stephanie Vaquer was Veda Scott mentioning her name, and that was it, So there's still a lot of questions, right? We here, some of the questions that are pulled up here, Lucha Blog pulls up a lot quite as well. Was she talking to WWE previous to Forbidden Door, right? Did AEW have their own deal in place to make sure she worked the show, or is this a sign that the WWE talks were just happened after Forbidden Door, which a lot of people think was the case, right? And I believe I myself, doing our review, I was like, when I was doing the review, I believe I even touched on the fact that WWE should probably make her an offer after her performance at Forbidden Door, right? I don't know, what was WWE okay with her working the Guadalajara match on the Tuesday, excuse me, were they okay with that, but weren't okay with working her other dates? Or was this a Vaquer decision to work the Guadalajara date, but then just throw everything else away, right? We don't know. Look, Vaquer overall, right, has been put herself in a position. I look, if you go back and you listen to my tapes, ever since the Strong Women's Championship tournament last March, I've been telling you all how much buzz that she generated for herself, and how, she lost twice, how losing twice to Mercedes Moné didn't really matter. She still came out a winner, and she might actually come out the biggest winner because she's leaving her 2 losses against Mercedes Moné, 2 matches that essentially made her a common name in the mouths of pro wrestling fans in North America. Despite losing these 2 matches, off of these 2 matches, became this name that everyone knew and ended up getting a WWE contract. That's a W. I've been telling you that she's been on the rise. There's been a lot of buzz, and that the rub from the Mercedes match had been carrying her since, and it carried her right into a match that into a situation that has been her dream. She has dreamt of being a WWE wrestler for a long time. She has, of course, now everyone's talking about it now, but she did have tryouts with WWE. What was it, 2018? That didn't quite work out. But you know what that did? Lit a fire under her. She went back and worked on her act, worked on her in-ring, and brought her to where she is today. So that motivating factor made her what she was today. So, it's a question. Vaquer's situation is really a question of, how much did she really put any stock into the AEW contract when her dream was to be a WWE wrestler, a superstar, a WWE superstar. And now that this I don't recall if I talked about it specifically like on the Discord or, if it was in DMs with people, but, because some people were asking me, well, if I were her, I would take the AEW deal because she probably can work everywhere else. I'm like, well, maybe, but here's the thing: is like the cachet of WWE is still very strong, and still in the United States, in the United States and Canada, but in Mexico, they're not quite sure what AEW is. As much as it was exciting to see the BCC down there and doing stuff, I mean, people were excited to see former WWE stars, former WWE superstar Daniel Bryan, I can't even say his old name, or Dean Ambrose, or Cesaro. And I mean, the AEW name I don't think carries as much weight as AEW fans would like to think. And if you've grown up in an environment where WWE is the thing and everyone knows about it and that's like the pinnacle, and that's what you aim for. That's what you want. There's wrestlers who go to bed at night dreaming about main eventing WrestleMania. And they're just looking to get signed by the Fed. Guys like Will Ospreay, who are like, no, I want to, alternatives. I don't necessarily have to wrestle for these guys to be on top of the world and so on. Guys like Ospreay are few and far between. There's not many of them. Most, especially now that WWE is in a hot period right now, they want to get a piece. Everyone wants a piece of it, right? So a lot of these wrestlers, most of the wrestlers you're seeing on TV didn't grow up wishing to be on AEW television. They wanted to be on the big stage. They wanted to be in WWE. That might change, but it's going to take a generation for this to change. It'll probably take 10 years. Who knows if it ever truly will too. But if it were to, it's not going to be something that's going to happen over the next couple of years. So circling back to Vaquer here, maybe her intention was to go to WWE all along. And I think that was her dream. And I think that no matter what AEW would have thrown their way, unless it was an ungodly amount of money, something that she's like, I'd be stupid to turn this down, WWE was going to be her destination. So she's going to be heading to NXT. And I mean, again, like, good for her. Like I said earlier, good for her if she was able to negotiate a better spot for herself on the NXT pay scale. I think she deserves it. She shouldn't come in with the basic, share the same salary as Izzy Dame. So good for her. In the aftermath of it all, how how mad is CMLL? I would say probably very. Like I said, they haven't mentioned her by name or in any of the posts, any of their post shows or their Informa show. They've never mentioned her. So that to me doesn't come across as a doing business the right way type of scenario. I heard Joe Lanza posit the idea that maybe Vaquer, and I mean, we're getting into some real deep conspiracy here, but nonetheless, it's interesting to think of. Maybe Vaquer worked the July 9 Guadalajara show so she could give the impression that she's doing business the right way, that she's leaving, she said goodbye, and she's out the door, so that she can point to that and say, no, I did things correctly. Have that. But that's look, it's possible, but that's some galaxy brain conspiracy stuff. I don't know if she's above that or not. I don't know. I'm just, it's an interesting theory. But I get the impression that CMLL is not happy. Because I would assume that they would have said something on TV. They would have said something about Vaquer, but they are avoiding her name like the plague. It'd be interesting to see at the next this week at the Friday show, see if they bring it up at all, if they start mentioning her. I don't know. Again, we'll have to see how this plays out. Again, CMLL is usually very good when it's time to release people from their contracts for big American deals. But like I said again, they usually ask the wrestler to finish up their dates. Vaquer hasn't done that. She didn't do that. She shut. So it kind of feels like a burnt bridge. How mad is New Japan? Well, apparently New Japan is very upset because they do not like advertising things and people pulling out, especially 5 days before the show. Trust me when I tell you, The Office hates that. Hates it with a capital HATES. It's a big no-no. So she didn't honor her dates. And there's a difference between pulling out of a booking. There's a difference between that and being injured, right? If she had, broken a leg, slipped a disc, whatever, they'd probably be like, okay, this sucks, but we're gonna figure it out. But this is a big no-no for New Japan. You don't do that. I heard people speculating, but this probably has something to do with Rush. This probably has something to do with Rush and supporting her ex-boyfriend, luchador Quatero. I think that's what his name is. I'm usually tighter than this. Quattrero, who was arrested and I believe is still in jail, who was arrested for domestic abuse and, threatening violence on Vaquer, apparently, tried to strangle her, like she, there's some pretty serious stuff, right? So he was arrested for attempted murder and so on and so forth, and domestic abuse, like just something absolutely horrible. And Rush and a few other wrestlers, but specifically Rush in this circumstance, late last year there was a petition for him to be released from jail and serve his, I believe this is correct. There was a petition put out for to the judge, and not the petition, not like something on change.org, like an official like something official, right? To have Quattrero finish his sentence at under house arrest as opposed to being in prison, and Rush was one of the guys, was a guy who stuck up for him and sort of lobbied for this to happen, and this of course left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, and a lot of people believed that she chose WWE because Rush works for AEW. And I speculated on that being, well, that would be a thing, right? That would be. But a lot of people were running with this and saying, no, this is absolutely a reason. Well, there is no tangible proof. There hasn't even been a report by some of the best trusted sources in Lucha Libre coverage in regards to, sure, Rush being in AEW has kept her from signing there. Didn't keep her from working the dates. Didn't keep her from working Forbidden Door and showing up on Dynamite. I think that was kind of nonsense. And it's still, and yet there's still people who are going around saying, you know, this probably was a circumstance. And it's not. And if it is, everyone's keeping it real fucking close to the chest. And I feel this is something that would be circulating. And I don't understand. But you know what? Here's the thing. A lot of these people who are commenting on this situation were just 2 weeks ago, were when people were online talking about Stephanie Vaquer going to Forbidden Door and how excited people were. These are the same, most of these people were people tweeting out, who is this? We don't know. Oh, just another wrestler, video packages, all that nonsense. And now suddenly there are these experts in covering stories that have been happening for over a year at this point, 18 months now or so, and suddenly they know all about it and they know all these things and they're able to put one and one together. Suddenly. Whereas there are people like Lucha Blog, like Rob Viper on X, formerly Twitter, who cover Lucha Libre and have been doing it for years, who brought it up because they hear the scuttlebutt, they hear people talking about it online, and they flat out say it. We cannot say that Rush was a reason that prevented her from signing with AEW. And yet, this is still a narrative going on online because people are listening to the dumbest people on earth. They are listening to people who 3 weeks ago were going, who? Stephanie who? And now suddenly, because she joined WWE, now she's worth their interest. Now they know all about her. Now suddenly, they're a Lucha Libre expert. They've been following Lucha Libre. They know all the details of the Quattrero ordeal, his arrest, the accusations, the conviction. They know all about it. When in fact, it is more proof that all these people want, is more WWE. They went from poo-pooing Stephanie Vaquer to now being champions and cheering her on and going, we are so glad that she's here. What a great get, so on and so, and it's transparent. It's disgusting. It's phony. And you should be able, the listeners, the A+ audience to this D-list podcast. I can't even do my line anymore. You, the A+ audience to this D-list podcast, you should be able to figure out who's been doing it, and you should immediately remove them from your line of sight. If you're still on Twitter, boom, get them out of there. Unfollow, mute, block if you have to. These people are not worth your time. We have to stop catering, listening, giving air to the worst people out there, doing terrible masquerading as being wrestling fans, when in fact, all they want is more WWE. People pretending to be wrestling fans when in fact, all they are WWE fans and just want more WWE. I want to know how many of these Stephanie Vaquer top guys were listening to the Marigold show this weekend. How many of them bought the pay-per-view to watch AJ Styles versus Naomichi Marufuji in Pro Wrestling Noah? I want to know. Not watched clips on YouTube, on Twitter. Not watched clips on Twitter. I'm saying sitting down and watching a full match. They probably didn't. I am ready to bet that they did not. Professional wrestling fans or media members, not all of them, I'll let you parse that out. But professional wrestling fans WWE fans masquerading as professional wrestling fans, pretending. So why did she leave? We're not quite sure. It's something that she was offered. She couldn't turn it down. I think it's just very curious. I think it's just very, very curious that what she ended up doing seems very cut and dry. It's like slicing through it and just like throwing everything aside. It's very curious to me. Very curious. So, next step of her career is heading off to WWE. I'm excited to see how this is going to turn out. She's one of those, we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not excited to see her in NXT. I think NXT is a terrible wrestling show. I think it's a terrible, terrible wrestling show. It's the closest thing it's like a reality show. It's like people pretending to be wrestlers. Look, it's like Triple H tells us it's like Triple H told us not that long ago when he was with Pat McAfee, and he said, WWE is not a sport. It is a movie or a TV show about a sport. And nothing represents that more than NXT when you have, conventionally attractive people that you could all absolutely see being on any reality show on the planet, Survivor, Big Brother, or, whatever they have on TLC these days, MILF Manor or whatever the fuck. You could absolutely, you look at that roster and you're like, these are all potential reality TV show stars. They would all have perfect casting for reality TV. And they are reality TVing your pro wrestling right now, trying to tell you that this product that we're putting out is good, when all it is for is snippety little clips that you can put on TikTok, that you can watch on Twitter, and that's it. And that's where the conversation ends. That's where the conversation ends. One last thing about, the media posing as pro wrestling fans and actually just wanting more WWE, because of course, right? Because of absolutely course. Somehow this turned against Tony Khan. Somehow this became a negative for AEW. Apparently by, and the word I saw being thrown around is, after investing into Vaquer, after investing into Vaquer on TV, WWE swoops in and takes her away from him, right? Absolutely. You know, that's absolutely something that people have been saying. But in reality, when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. It's not. Look, if Vaquer had been on AEW for weeks and Tony had been building her and had given her programs, building to the match with Monet on TV, and then this happened, then you'd be like, yeah, this is absolutely terrible, right? But she came in for one match on a cross-promoted show with multiple partners. She came in for one match. She was promoted for one match, a match that she also lost. She lost and lost a title and then was sent home packing. If she was meant to be a centerpiece of AEW's women's division, that Tony had these great plans, and I don't think it would have gone this way. I don't think he would have brought her in. I think wasn't she live on Dynamite? Like on location once, right? I might be mistaken. I don't even know. I'm drawing just a little blank, but I feel like she was essentially, she never wrestled on AEW television previous to Forbidden Door. She had showed up that one time for the challenge, for the one-to-one challenge, right? She was in the shirt. She was in her dress clothes. And that was it. Was Tony interested in her? Oh, most likely they made her an offer. Sure. But I failed to see how this makes AEW look bad. I don't understand how. When it's someone who came in, wrestled on a card, and then left. This is CMLL's problem. This is not AEW's problem, and is not a bad look for AEW because nothing had been set. Now again, if Tony had spent time building her, giving her matches, and then last minute she hits the bricks, she's gone, and you're like, yeah, okay. This was indeed a very bad look. CMLL, sure. I'm sure we're all assuming they're upset. They had plans, for sure. But somehow how does this turn against Tony Khan? Why is this an issue about Tony Khan? Bringing in a wrestler who then gets scooped up by WWE. Look, if anything, look, I'll tell you what. If anything, this might create a little bit of cold feet when it comes to CMLL moving forward now. CMLL might be a little more weary about sending their talent off to wrestle on AEW on nationwide television, only to get a call from WWE after, and then someone else jumps ship and burns a bridge. Right? They might not want their relationship with AEW to become, the United States tryout stage for CMLL talent. They don't want it. I don't think they'd want it to turn into the recruitment, the recruitment leg, where it's like, okay, yes, we'll send people, but they might not come back. That's something that I'm sure CMLL has discussed and thought about, and that, unfortunately, might have a true impact on the availability of CMLL talent to AEW. Now, I am not saying that CMLL now is cold to AEW, that this ruined the relationship. I think that anyone with a reasonable brain can see that AEW had nothing to do with WWE scooping up Stephanie Vaquer. But what I'm saying is I can see CMLL going, you know what, Tony? Let's give this a breather. We're not quite confident. Let's just give it some time here. Let's not jump in too much. We're gonna pull back some of our guys. Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk again in a couple of months, kind of thing. I can absolutely see that. Or it might not have an impact at all. It might not even have an impact. You know, maybe CMLL will go through some housekeeping on their end, and they're gonna make sure that they cross the T's and dot the I's on stuff with their own talent, and to make sure that this doesn't happen. And maybe it won't even be an issue. Look, they've got shows. Look, AEW is currently the home of their women's world champion. They have AEW talent is going to be going to the Anniversario show, right, in October. Chris Jericho, notably. You know, they've got Atlantis Jr. and Kyle Fletcher coming up, right, for Ring of Honor. So maybe, but look, these were all things that were probably set in stone before the Vaquer thing hit, right? These are probably all things outside of Willow. Willow, no. But the rest, maybe, probably even. So maybe they're just going to follow through with this, you know? Whereas the things that, whereas, you know, how they feel right now can still be up in the air. But, you know, I might be just like overthinking this, which wouldn't be the first time I overthink something. But, you know, maybe CMLL might have some cold feet moving forward, sending guys to AEW. Or maybe, but again, maybe not either. We've got some news items. There's all sorts of little news, but there's no big news. There's just like news items that we could cover, that we can talk about, and that's what we're gonna do. Trent Beretta apparently is out with an injury. Fightful Select reported on Saturday on the 13th. On the 13th. We're the 16th. On the 13th. Yeah. That Trent Beretta has been out of action since Double or Nothing because he has not been cleared to compete for quite some time. And then on Collision, Beretta interfered in the main event, took out Orange Cassidy. The Kingdom double teamed Kyle O'Reilly, but after the match, Cassidy had a wrench and took out Trent from behind, so he was written off television. Yeah, I mean, that sucks. As chat says, the Don Callis family injury curse. The Don Callis injuries, for sure. Like they're, you know, Hobbs, Sammy Guevara, and now Trent. I mean, it's not looking good here. I mean, look, honestly, this sucks. I don't have many thoughts here. Of course, we're just bringing this up here, so we have it, you know, in our collective minds. But, you know, it sucks because Trent was absolutely being set up for a push, like probably the biggest push of his career. You know, it was already a thing, his feud with Orange Cassidy, and, you know, I was only hoping that that Trent could finally win the big one, that something could be done with him as a heel, and I thought we might have been down an interesting path. But man, that sometimes, look, I don't want to be defeatist, but sometimes in pro wrestling, something works or does not work just out of timing, right? And look, I'm not saying this situation is that Trent's push is irredeemably dead. I'm not saying it's unsalvageable, but we were onto something. Can we recoup this? Can we recoup this as when he comes back? Right? I don't know, but yeah, I mean, you know, I think it sucks. I think it's terrible. Like we'll only hope that he gets well soon, and that he's able to get back into the groove of this push, because that's horrible timing. Contract news: CJ Perry, FKA Lana, is apparently done with AEW. She gave an interview with USA Today on Friday where she said that her time with AEW, quote unquote, has just finished. She debuted at All Out in September 2023 and hasn't been used on TV since she betrayed Andrade at World's End during his match against. No, was it at World's End, his match with Miro? Yes, it was at World's End, his match with Miro. So there you go. Yeah, no, that's right. It was at World's End. Perry said that she's now free to sign with any wrestling promotion. Gee, old Willikers. Who hot diggity. And rather than competing in the ring, she's focused on being an on-screen manager. She says, quote, "I'm really focused on finding talent and cultivating them and helping them become the best wrestler champion possible. I guess you could say I want to be the Paul Heyman." Now that's a kayfabe answer. Right? That's 100% kayfabe. Right? Like, I've never heard of anyone talk about, you know, the great talent grooming ability of FKA Lana. And she also says, you know, the AEW is so focused on sport. My heart is with WWE. Like, she was clearly, you know, pulling out the flare gun, you know, that explodes in the sky in the shape of the WWE logo. Is Miro done soon? They're separated now, right? Like, again, though, like, it's not the first time, but they're separated now, so I don't know. Look, I think Miro's just waiting out his contract. I really do. I think he's just waiting. He is recovering from injuries, but, you know, at some point. Here's a little interesting bit of news. Tomohiro Ishii of New Japan Pro Wrestling is going to be hanging out with AEW for the rest of summer. Tomohiro Ishii was knocked out of the play-in tournament for the G1 Climax 34 this year, which means he's got the summer off. Our boy, the Stone Pitbull's got nothing to do. So Tony Khan gave him a call and was like, "Hey, you want to come hang out with us over the summer? Come have some, come enjoy some In-N-Out burger." Isn't it? It's In-N-Out, right? That he really likes, I think. Ishii was on Dynamite this week. He showed up there to take part in the really fun 4-way match for the number one contendership for the international title. After the match, Tony Khan tweeted out the following quote: "It's so great having New Japan all-time legend Tomohiro Ishii here in AEW on Wednesday Night Dynamite. Tonight, we love having Ishii here, and now he's going to stay here in AEW with us for the rest of summer 2024. So, hey, you could do a lot worse than having Tomohiro Ishii hanging around there. I mean, in the context of the G1, I'm not going to go into it too much because I have a full preview show that you can listen to. It's available right now here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite podcast application, where we talk specifically about Tomohiro Ishii not being in the G1. I shouldn't say no longer, but not being in the G1 this year. You could do a lot worse than having Tomohiro Ishii hang around for the summer, right? And the fact that he's not in the G1 will give him, kind of sucks, but also makes a lot of sense in the context of what they're trying to do with the G1 this year, what it appears what they're trying to do with the G1 this year. He's a guy that ostensibly is more over in the US than he is in Japan. Not that they don't like him in Japan, not that they don't appreciate him, but this is a guy who's never been pushed, and he'll pushed. He'll never be a top guy. And I even think his pushing days are over. And he's a guy who shows up in North America and people go bonkers for. So I'm absolutely okay with this. I am 100% okay with Ishii hanging around. And the AEW fans already know who he is, and they're going to be excited. They're going to be excited for him spending the summer there and being in matches. There's a lot of great stuff to come out of this. So I think this is good news. I think it's more than good news. It's great news. Great news for Ishii and AEW. Chris Jericho, we mentioned it a little earlier, is going to be facing Místico in CMLL at the 91st anniversary event in September. A couple of weeks ago, Chris Jericho showed up on a Friday night and attacked Místico, laid him out to the dismay of many. And has since outright challenged Místico, and it was accepted. In the promo, Jericho called the match the biggest of Místico's career and one of the biggest of Jericho's, which is tremendous. So yeah, I mean, I think it's great stuff. The match is going to be taking place on September 13 for the anniversary show. It will likely be the main event. I've got no issues with that. I've got no problem with it. I think it's going to be good. It's going to work to Místico's strengths at the same time, where he's going to be the heroic babyface coming after the lazy American wrestler, the gringo, invading in here. It's tremendous stuff. So that's also been settled. So that's going to be happening in a couple of weeks. Jake Lee is leaving Pro Wrestling Noah and joining New Japan Professional Wrestling. At Noah's Final Destination show this weekend, there was what was billed as the last match for the Good Looking Guys, which was Jake Lee's stable of dudes there in Pro Wrestling Noah. Lee, Yohei, and Tadasuke faced Jack Morris, Anthony Green, and Lil J. Cleary. And then, he picks up the win for his team. And after the win, New Japan's own Gedo shows up at ringside and offers him a spot. Offers him a spot in the War Dogs. In Bullet Club War Dogs. And then he beats up Jack Morris, he being Jake Lee, not Gedo, beats him up some more. And then he says goodbye to Noah. And he is joining. Look, we were talking about Stephanie Vaquer's dream. Here's Jake Lee's dream. Coming full circle. He's finally going to make it to New Japan. And after years of wrangling and, when G1 season starts popping up, started tweeting about going into business for himself, trying to find a way to get some attention, to get into the G1. Now, he's not only in the G1, but he's going to be an actual member of the New Japan roster. I could not be more unfazed by this. Of all the people out there, working in Noah and in the Indies, and people who are unsigned as well, in All Japan and people who are unsigned, you're like, yeah, let's add to our roster, the human slice of bread, Jake Lee. And especially Jake Lee, this lanky, dull, uninteresting pro wrestler is being added to the War Dogs, whose entire thing is we're loud-mouthed jackasses who just beat up on people brutally and savagely. Like, Jake Lee is actually going to have to show some emotion if he wants this to work. He's actually going to have to show some passion here. This is a guy who was supposed to turn things around in NJPW. He was supposed to turn things around, but didn't. And he was brought into Noah and was sort of the cornerstone to try and revitalize the place after, the reign of terror of Kaiji Muto sort of ground the company to a halt. And guess what? That didn't work either. And now he's heading to New Japan, and I don't understand. I don't understand this. And he is absolutely a guy who I do not understand how he keeps getting worked and getting put in spots where he's a top guy. I'm not necessarily saying they're bringing him into New Japan for him to be a top guy, despite the fact that he is feuding with Tetsuya Naito, who is right now not only the world champion, but the biggest star the company has. Like, unquestionably, bar none. But they're bringing him in to feud with Naito. They've already had their they've already had their things at the All Together show and all that stuff. I don't understand it, man. I don't get it. And people have tried to make me understand. Oh, well, this is what Jake Lee, but if you have to try and argue with me to understand why a professional wrestler is working, why a professional wrestler is working, and I just don't see it, I don't think the professional wrestler is doing a very good job. I shouldn't have fans trying to explain to me why Jake Lee is working or not. Blah. He stinks. I completely get it. I completely don't get it. You know what? Especially when, I don't know why they didn't, make a huge play for Kaito Kiyomiya, for instance. I don't know why they're clearly passing up on Katsuhiko Nakajima, right? Again, which is another guy that I don't understand. But Nakajima, you can understand maybe a little more because apparently he's a little difficult to work with. Apparently he's not the nicest guy, a bit of an asshole, so maybe you don't want that kind of guy running around your locker room, maybe. But it just baffles me that, you know, they had Kiyomiya last year, and they were clearly, I don't want to say clearly, but I think they were courting him to a degree. And then just everything just stopped, and, you know, they did the thing with Okada, they did the G1, and he did well in the G1, and it's so weird. It's so weird. A youth-focused company, and Kiyomiya at that time, everyone was saying he's so tremendously undervalued in Noah. New Japan is going to be the youth-oriented company. He should go there. Well, New Japan proved us for the rest of the year that they weren't interested in making people. They weren't interested in pushing the youngins, right? Not last year anyway. This year might be another story, but last year they weren't. So maybe it was a good move. But Jake Lee, man, what are we doing? Jake Lee. On the topic of Pro Wrestling Noah, since we're on it, the N1 Victory Tournament was announced. I'm not gonna break it down all that much because I'm getting back into Noah slowly. I think Noah has been very good this year so far. The stuff I've been watching has been tremendous, but like I'm not 100% back in because I think that what the spot that Noah used to occupy in my pro wrestling watching rotation has now been taken up by CMLL. But I do try to keep abreast from afar with Noah, which is why I'm at the very least mentioning, and I watched the show, the Final Destination show, the Great Destination. What do they call it? God, Final Destination. And they announced the N1 Victory Tournament participants, and two NXT superstars are going to be a part of the tournament this year, being Josh Briggs and Tavion Heights, which I still think is a location. Like, it is not a it's not someone's name. It's somewhere you drive to, you drive your sweetheart to Tavion Heights because they've got a really nice drive-in. That's where you take her out, you drive to the next county over to Tavion Heights to watch a creature feature, a double feature creature feature. He's the guy that they replaced in the no contract catch club, no contract catch crew, no quarter catch crew. Yeah, he's the guy that replaced the other guy they killed, the Stevenson's brother, Bobby Stevenson. So he's going to go over there. So that's it. Now, Josh Briggs in the N1, I think should be good. Josh Briggs has he's not an NIL recruit. He's not a guy who just came out of nowhere and just started wrestling. No, he's got a past. I think he might have the gumption to pull it off. I think it's interesting. And Tavion Heights, I'm sorry, I'm never going to get over it. I am never going to get over that. It just sounds like, it sounds like a WB Friday night teen drama, last week on Tavion Heights, and it's high school drama. It's like, Immediately after Dawson's Creek, we get Tavion Heights. I'm sorry. It'll never connect as a person's actual name. What were we saying? So Heights, yeah. So Heights is an NIL guy, which I think is really interesting. Of course, he's a bronze medalist. He's a Greco-Roman wrestler. He's a bronze medalist he won them at the World Wrestling Championships. It's not a promotion. Like pre-pandemic. During the pandemic. 2021. Something like that. Anyway. And I see here he also won gold in the Pan American Wrestling Championships. So, the guy's an athlete. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that he's going out there to get some reps, as they say. And okay, let's start with the good stuff. Let's start with the stuff that I feel is good. WWE working with other promotions, doing some crossover stuff. I mean, it's on the surface good. Especially when you have talent that you don't know what you're doing with. They're sending Charlie Dempsey over to another Bloodsport show. They're sending Shayna Baszler to another Bloodsport show. Like you got nothing for them to do. Let them go do stuff somewhere else, right? I think that's good. I don't now, and it's the same thing with TNA and all that. I don't know what the benefit is for WWE to do this. I don't know what the benefit is. I don't know what they're going to do with it. Like, I don't think they're even going to promote this. Did they promote this? Did they talk about this? Like, obviously NXT is on right now, but as I'm recording this, so maybe I'm just like, but I would be shocked, I tell you, if they promoted this on TV. Did they promote Io Sky showing up at Marigold this week? I don't think they did. Did they promote AJ Styles versus Naomichi Marufuji? I don't think they did. Like, what is the benefit? What is the benefit of? What is the benefit of doing this for WWE? And I don't see it. I don't know what it is. Other than eventually assimilating said company into their own, which is the MO. It's been WWE's MO for as long as it's existed. Of course, this has always been under Vince, right? Right. Where Vince's vision about his competition was there should not be any competition. Is this the vision of TKO? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. They have plenty of opportunities here with TNA, with Noah, with Marigold, with these little relationships that they have developed to show that, yeah, we can just like do talent exchange and keep it on a very face level, right? On a very surface level. But in the past, whenever WWE has worked with other companies, the other companies are mostly not around anymore, unless it's the Japanese ones where Vince never saw as a threat because they were on a completely different continent. He didn't see them coming in to horn in on his racket, but any other territories, poof, ECW, poof, WCW, poof, Evolve, poof. Like, just point to an association that they've had with the promotion, and the promotion is no longer there. And it's not as if WWE didn't have the opportunity to continue promoting shows under these banners with these promotions. You know? It's not as if they didn't have that opportunity. They just chose not to. They decided to bury ECW and WCW, probably the two most famous ones, but everyone else, you can go back to Maple Leaf Wrestling. All the way back to Maple Leaf Wrestling. That's why it's interesting when people are like, oh, well, the TNA relationships and back and forth. Yeah, well, all I'm saying is that Anthem made some cuts, leaned themselves out. One of their executive vice presidents or the top guy right now? No, the top guy of Anthem. Isn't it the top guy of Anthem? Not of TNA, I should say. Isn't he a former vice president of WWE? No, it turns out that prior to becoming the president of TNA Wrestling, Anthony Ciccione is his name. Ciccione had been with Anthem for 16 years, managing technical operations and multiple cable and digital channels. Prior to his time at Anthem, Ciccione was a producer of sports content, including catapulting the Score to success by bringing WWE to the channel. Okay. So, it's like, but it seemed it's just slipping my mind right now. And if I had Garrett Kidney or Mike Gilbert here, they could tell me in an instant. Just some guys, are you lurking in the chat right now? They'd tell me in a minute. But I feel like there's someone who used to work, who used to be, who used to work, I think in a vice president position in he used to work in a vice president position at WWE and now works for TNA. Like, the integration is getting real. Is it? No, it's just not. It's not connecting. It's not connecting. I may be off base on that one. But look, the point being is that they're maintaining this relationship. Ultimately, the point that I'm making is that, WWE might not have the same strategy with Vince as Vince had, which is wipe out the competition, right? That's why I sort of giggle when I hear people saying, WWE is working with TNA is good for professional wrestling. It's good for Noah. And I'm like, no, it's good for WWE. Because WWE will stomp out its competition in a flash if it needs to. Don't even question it. So, which brings us back to the original question. What is WWE's benefit to sending their people there? Altruistic? Look at us. We're, like Chad pointed out, look at us. We're so friendly. We work well with others now. And they're talented. Like, you're sending Tavion Heights to work. You're sending Tavion Heights to work Japanese, right? Japanese style. You're sending him over there, and he's going to learn some things there that he's going to bring back to the United States. And in the performance center, once he gets, in the ring with Matt Bloom is going to be like, nah, you can't do that. Like, I don't even understand what the point is. The same thing with Josh Briggs. Josh Briggs is not going to, he might shine over there, but he comes back here and he's still going to be working the WWE house style. Like, I don't know. I don't know what, I don't know what the thing is. I don't know what I don't know what's motivating WWE by doing this other than optics, other than seeing AEW do this and getting acclaim, having people get excited. Then WWE's like, look, we'll do it too then. Other than that, other than seeing other people working together, WWE do. And that is, trust me, is a huge break in how Vince approached things with the WWE universe living in this hermetic silo in which nothing else existed outside of that. Now that the fact that we're reaching out, we're doing stuff, it's fine. But I don't understand what their benefit is. I barely understand what the benefit is for the other promotions. You know, is this WWE fans don't, I can't say this enough. They just want more WWE. They're not going to be watching the N1. Does anyone think that suddenly WWE fans, and specifically these NXT fans who can't get enough of Roxanne Perez, and of Joe Hendry, and and of the superstar performances of Ethan Page, do you think they're going to lock themselves into the N1 and get their score sheets, make some Excel files, some spreadsheets, and follow all the numbers? Do you think they're going to do that? Do you think they're going to you think they're going to sign up to Wrestle Universe and watch that? No, they're not. Let's just be honest. No, they're not. I might, Warren. Yeah, but you'll be like 1 out of 50,000. What is the benefit? I don't even know. I don't even know how much of a benefit. Well, we'll talk about it when we get to Marigold, but I don't even know how much of a benefit EO Sky was on the attendance for the Marigold show. Get to that in a second. I don't even know what do they think that this is going to bring in new subscribers? WWE fans, I can't stress this enough. They just want more WWE. They don't want alternatives. They don't want anything different. They want things that feel comfortable to them, that looks like WWE. And I think that's why, when someone like Joe Hendry pops in, they're like, oh yeah, okay, this feels good. And they get really excited about a guy like Joe Hendry, who is one of the most mid pro wrestlers of all time. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying he's mid, just like Shawn Spears, just like Ethan Page. I don't think, I've ever screamed into my microphone at the fantastic work and the great opportunities that were going to come from Ethan Page and Shawn Spears joining AEW. I don't know what the benefits are for these promotions to do these crossover events. I don't know what the benefits are, especially since WWE is going to come in and work their territories and probably work it more successfully because the WWE shows are going to be bringing in the people that the crowds want to see. They're going to bring in Cody. If Roman's back, they're going to bring in Roman, so on and so forth. Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn, Mommy. And it's on the surface, I think this is going to be interesting. A guy like me is going to watch very, very specifically Tavion Heights and his matches here. I am going to be very curious to see what Tavion Heights is going to pull off in the N1. Josh Briggs, I know how Josh Briggs is. I know how he is. So he'll probably be able to unleash a little more. But I'm not going to lie. Manabu Soya versus, Tavion Heights? Yeah, okay. Dr. Wagner Jr., Dr. Wagner III, which is kind of like I want to call him now instead of calling him El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. Keno? Like, I can't wait to see how Tavion Heights is going to deal with one of Keno's shoot punches. You know? It's an interesting block he's in. And he's going to be wrestling people who are a far cry from whatever the hell they do with the PC and whatever they do on Tuesday nights. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But look, I think I've talked about this enough. I think it's Josh Briggs, Tavion Heights heading over to the N1. Curious, interesting, proof that the relationship with WWE is strengthening, blah, 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 whatever it's worth. But I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. Let's see in a couple of, let's talk about this in a couple of weeks. That's enough news. We're good. Let's do a couple of reviews here real quick. I mean, they're not going to be, I'm going to talk about two shows. Fantasticamania USA and the Marigold show. But I'm not going to go super in depth because I don't think they're really super in depth shows to break down. I don't think there's, you'll see in a second anyway. But I do want to touch on them. Maybe preview Slammiversary. That's something coming up this weekend too, right? Right, guys? Tell me I'm right. I thought so, right? No, isn't it not this weekend? Look. Slammiversary 2024. Yeah, it's July 20. There you go. July 20. I mean, if we have time. Look, I hear I'm saying, oh, we'll go through this quick. If I have some time, and I'm dilly-dallying like a dork. Let's start with CMLL Fantasticamania USA, which happened this weekend. July 13, 2024, in San Jose, California, at the Mount Pleasant High School gym, which did not seem pleasant in the least. That place looked like a furnace. It looked like everyone was melting in that high school gym. Holy smokes. 906 in attendance. I don't know if that's a good number for Mount Pleasant High School gym. I don't know what the attendance is. I didn't call the secretariat. I didn't call the information hotline over at Mount Pleasant to ask them what is the attendance for, what is the typical, what is the maximum capacity for attendance for a wrestling show in your gymnasium. The lady you would have picked up would have stammered through it. Probably ended up saying, I'm not sure. Yes, this is why I'm a D-list podcast, because I don't do the work. What do you want from me? This was an interesting show. I thought, I mean, look, I think the fact that, like 906 in attendance, it seemed like less. There were many seats that were empty. Is it because like people just decided to not show up because of the heat? Maybe. Like I probably would have been turned off by it. I was like, hey, you know what? Let's just stay home. Let's just watch it on TV, you know, kind of thing. Let's buy it on pay-per-view. And then again, you can ask yourself, why would I buy this on pay-per-view? Because to be perfectly frank, and these are two promotions that I really like. New Japan is my favorite promotion, and CMLL has grown on me. I think it's tremendous. So these two together, I'm like, Fantasticamania, let's go. But I look at the card, I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to sink my teeth into here? What are the matches? There's a couple of them where I was like intrigued, and thankfully they delivered. But on paper, it's not a card that sort of gets me excited, that makes you go, hell yeah, take my money kind of thing. And on top of that, if you're already paying for CMLL on YouTube, which is like $30 a month, and you have to pay extra for this pay-per-view, which is this pay-per-view, which is not even as big a show as the Friday night shows, as the Friday night spectaculars. It's not even on the same footing. And it's fascinating to me that, and I don't mean this with any true form of disrespect, but when we get Virus, we get Barbaro Cabanario, who are guys who can work, can go, don't get me wrong, but who aren't even pushed in CMLL. These are guys who are not pushed. We're not getting Templario, we're not getting Soberano Jr., we're not getting Atlantis Jr., we're not getting Mascara Dorada. Like, we're not getting real top guys where you're like, I will pay money to see. No one's paying money, I don't think, to watch Virus in a pay-per-view setting. He's a fine, I actually like Virus, don't get me wrong. I actually like him. And I thought he had a great showing, particularly on this show. But he's not a push commodity. Even as a CMLL fan, I started struggling. I'm like, well, he's a good worker, but, what has he done for me lately? Kind of thing. You switch out, you put a Soberano Jr. in there, and like, all right, I'm into this. Now, this is something I can sink my teeth into. You get... You put a Templario across from a Yoda Tsuji, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm out of water. But I'm like, holy shit. So it's like I paid money too, between you and I. mean, we're talking, I'm talking above my station here. Like I'm above all of this, but I paid money too for this. This is the feeling I have after watching Fantasticamania USA. This is how I feel. Good little show. You're in and out, like, what was it? It's under 3 hours. It's like 2.5 hours, 2:45, something like that. You're in and out. You saw some good wrestling, some fun times. But I felt like I paid for this. Like, this is a pay-per-view event, and it didn't feel big. It felt like it was in a gymnasium. Felt like everyone was dying with the heat, the audience included. To be fair, they were into the show. But, when you see people, doing this all the time, you're like, okay, geez, okay, that's fine. Yeah, the atmosphere wasn't there. It was just it just came across like every New Japan of America show. It came across as as an indie show streaming on IWTV. That's how it came across as. And I'm paying extra for this. I'm paying extra for this for two world-class promotions putting on a show in the United States in a school gymnasium. Like, what am I doing? And of course, the audio mix is terrible. They even lose the audio at some point, but to be fair, for the time the audio was zonked out and commentary was dead, I was kind of, this is kind of nice. I'm slow. I can Veda Scott as the play-by-play person doesn't do it for me. Veda has very good qualities, and I think she's a great color person. But too much Veda Scott is not good. And it was nice when commentary just died, and all we could hear were the guys wrestling and grunting and the ring and people cheering. I was like, this is nice. This is nice. I don't know what happened, but could we keep it up, please? So I don't know. To me, ultimately, it's a big mixed bag. But let's get into it. We'll go through it, in order, I guess. Opening match was the Copa Fantastica 4-way match, won by the DKC against his opponents Adrian Quest. There wasn't multiple, there's just one. Adrian Quest, Viento, and Kukui, who was a revelation for me in this match. I had never seen Kukui in a wrestling match before. He doesn't have a cage match profile. I was stoked to see this big guy doing tremendous stuff that big guys can't do. Doing, Spanish flies off and he's a big lad. And I'm not talking like tall and like he's a corpulent gentleman. And he's just flying around. I like that. I liked him a lot. I want to see more Kukui moving forward. I'm very excited for more Kukui in my life. Apparently, I'm trying to be respectful. Chubbier than Black Taurus. How about that? Not quite like Black Taurus, chat, but chubbier. and apparently he's a West Coast guy. I like, even the people that I'm talking about, everyone sort of shrugs their shoulders and, well, we know this and that, and that's about it. So, all right, let's go. Anyway, the DKC won here. Apparently, he secured winning. This is a cup, right? Like Copa Fantastica. Apparently, this means that he secured his spot to defend the Copa Fantastica on the next Fantasticamania show, because he is the cup holder. Not the cup holder, the cup holder. Very dynamic, super fun opener. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought the opener was a blast. Satoshi Kojima and Okumura, Cozy Max is what they call themselves, successfully retained their MLW World Tag Team titles by defeating Magnus and Rugido, which are two wrestlers that I really like. I think Rugido is tremendous, and so is Magnus. And like commentary put over, these guys are already a team in New Japan, so in CMLL, excuse me. So I was excited to see this. Always exciting to see Satoshi Kojima. Not always exciting to see Okumura. Yeah, I thought this is a match that happened. I thought it was a little rough. And as good as the CMLL guys were, there was a lot of miscues and just some rough spots, Okumura is not the slickest wrestler in the world, and he's not the youngest one either. And, Satoshi Kojima can only do so much. I gave this 3 stars. Willow Nightingale defeated Yuvia and Viva Van to become the new CMLL World Women's Champion. They did some cutesy spots, and that's fine. But this started to get fiery after a series of moves to the floor and on the floor as well, as the women sort of started doing dives and leaps and all sorts of stuff. But then it kind of stretches on, and there's some weird spots. And man, it's just like, I felt it went just a little too long. I didn't know if there was just a lack of communication as well, because there's some stuff. Look, here's the thing. I think I've reached a spot here to talk about this spot. I think we have to have the conversation, the serious conversation, that Willow Nightingale should not do the pounce anymore. I don't think anyone knows how to set it up. I don't know how anyone knows how to take it properly. I don't know if she, hits the ropes too late as opposed to when she's supposed to hit her opponent with it. But it is always mistimed. It's always miscued. It always ends up with the person taking it, waiting in the middle of the ring for Willow to bounce back off the ropes and hit it. I think we got to put that one away. And I'm not saying retire it. I'm saying bring it out in top tier situations. I don't think you should blow this off in every match, Willow. If you're listening, I know you're listening. I don't think you should blow it off on every match. I think now it should be with very specific opponents in big time matches with people that will know how to take it and where the timing will be good and things. Because Yuvia, again, sort of wobbles into the middle of the ring and she's like, and then Willow does the pounce, and she doesn't sell it like the pounce Yuvia does. She doesn't sell it like that. She falls, she's, instead of fucking getting air, right? That's the idea behind I think, and this is not the first time that the pounce has been, I don't want to say whiffed or botched, but unsuccessful. It's not the first time. I think we need to stop pretending that this is something that Willow needs to do more often. I think it's a clear spot. If anything, it needs to be rehearsed. Like whatever, just get it out of the way. But I think I'm at a point where it's like, stop doing the pounce, Willow. Keep it for interesting moments. Anyway, but Willow wins in a fine little match. I thought it was pretty good. So what's next for her as CMLL World Women's Champion? She's probably already got a busy summer booked up already with AEW. Between, with the Statlander stuff and Wembley. I mean, there's the October show, there's the September show, coming up, right? The anniversary and Willow's been to Arena Mexico before. Like they can send her over, but clearly this feels like CMLL getting ready, CMLL putting their title on a trusted partner. This is what it feels like, while they build someone on their end who can challenge for the title and be a credible, good local Mexican champion for them, right? Which right now the division does not have. I dare you to say Tessa Blanchard. I double dare you. But they don't. They don't have anyone lined up, right? After the match, Yuvia, was doing this, was still challenging. There's a lot of, I don't know if we should read into that. There's a lot of this posturing that happens in CMLL. It happens quite a bit. A lot of people going, going into business for themselves and trying to create angles. So that might be a thing here. That might be what this was. Maybe not. Maybe there is something to it, but I wouldn't read too much into it. I don't think Yuvia's the one. There's Kira, who I think Kira in CMLL has a lot of star potential. I mean, she's not ready, but she has a lot of star potential. If they wanted to turn around and invest in her moving forward, I think that would be someone who could absolutely take up the mantle, but she's not ready yet. Zeusis, like, I don't know Zeusis is fine. Like, Catalina might be their next best option. I don't think that they really have someone big enough right now to be like, this is going to be the woman who's going to carry the division, that's going to be the face of it, not unlike what Vaquer was doing. Vaquer won the title in December last year. So, it's like, we'll see what happens. But, I feel like in the meantime, I think they were like, this is our safest bet. Let's put it on Willow. And then when Willow comes to Arena Mexico to defend it, she'll put over our new top girl, and that'll be elevative for that person. So I think there's a lot of good here. I think it's smart booking, but I just don't know who's going to be the one. But at the same time, it's not as if the world title is very defended to begin with. Like I said, Vaquer's last title defense, she didn't win it in December. The last title defense that she had for the World Women's title was in December. It was against La Haroshita. I think that's how you pronounce it. Haroshita. Who consequently is no longer with CMLL either. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Hechicero and Virus defeated the TMDK duo of Zack Sabre Jr. and Bad Dude Tito. I thought this was a blast. This was a lot of fun too. Especially Zack Sabre Jr. and Hechicero just having some great old times together, tying each other up into knots and stuff. This was really fun. Look, I mean, they had a 5-star match earlier this year in Arena Coliseo on a Saturday night. So they're back at it, and it's such a delight. It's my kind of stuff. I think Bad Dude Tito here in this match, because Virus is very good too. Very quick, high-flying, energetic. I feel like Bad Dude Tito seemed a little bit out of his depth here. But, not a complete disaster, but you could feel he was struggling maybe a little to keep up with Hechicero and Virus. But yeah, Hechicero wraps Bad Dude Tito up into a submission and gets the win. So another big win. Fun stuff. Really good match. No issues with it. Yoda Tsuji defeated Barbaro Cavernario. Barbaro Cavernario. I thought this ruled. I thought this was so good. I gave this 3 3/4 stars. It's probably my match of the night. I thought it was a whole lot of fun. Very, very good match. And Barbaro has this initial go. He when the match starts after Tsuji, where that's really tremendous. They're just doing power moves and dives to the floor. Tsuji starts pulling out the power offense and chops, and so does Barbaro, and they're just like slapping the hell out of each other, and the sweat is just exploding off of their chests. Like, it's such fantastic visuals. It looks hot as hell, but it was just like it looked harsh as hell. The conditions and so on, it's just bursting into clouds of sweat. It's tremendous stuff. Barbaro does a huge tope. Falconaro by Tsuji. Barbaro leapfrogs the spear and lands some kind of leg trap driver, but a stunner and a spear. Follows by Tsuji for the win. Fun, very good, very, very good match. Like I said, 3 3/4 stars. This was my match of the night. Gabe Kidd versus Ultimo Guerrero successfully retained his New Japan Strong Openweight title. I thought it was very good too. Big strike off from the start. I mean, this is what it was. It was a meat and potatoes. We're going to beat the tar out of each other match. No nonsense, no flippies, no flying around. I mean, there was, but, you know, this wasn't what you have in mind when you think about a lucha libre match. How about that? This was a down and dirty, gritty fight. I was into it, and I liked it. Boils into the audience like a good Gabe Kidd match should, and it just gets more and more hard-hitting and gruesome as the match goes forward. Gabe's Kidd chest is just a new shade of pink, one that the world has never seen. Avalanche Gourd Buster by Ultimo Guerrero, and the crowd is really into this, by the way. The crowd has been very good all evening, but this one I thought they were really into. Reverse superplex cover. Gabe Kidd kicks out. Ref is distracted. Kidd hits a low blow, and the pile driver for the win. Really, really, really good match too. I give this one as well 3 3/4 stars. I thought it was another highlight of the show. I think I liked, Sushi and Barbaro just a little more, but not by much. And then the main event in a Relevos Increíbles tag team match, Dookie and Místico defeated Rocky Romero and Volador Jr. Místico getting all the time in the world to pose and say hello to everyone and let the chance to sink in. And the idea here is in the Relevos Increíbles match is that it's usually two rivals who are on the same side. It's not as much of a can they coexist kind of thing. Like, this is something that happens in Lucha Libre to set up stories in other matches. And Volador Jr. and Rocky have a storied past. They've had some feuds. I mean, Rocky has feuds with everyone essentially in CMLL too. And and like I've said in the past, and I'll say it here again, Rocky Romero as a heel in CMLL, he's unparalleled. I think he's great. He's in his element so much here. But Volador usually is supposed to be, Volador is a technicals, not a rudo. But he tried to play the rudo here, and it just didn't land. There's a lot of things in this match that didn't land. I think this match was a little sloppy, and it's like it could never find its groove. It's like we're trying stuff, but I don't know if people are just are not on the right page, on the same page. It's like everyone has trouble just having this match gel and coalesce and have something happen, if that makes sense. And like I said, Volador completely out of sorts in trying to be a rudo here. Stuff gets really crisp when Doki and Rocky Romero are going at it. But I don't know, the CMLL guys, they were fine, but nothing more than that. I don't know. There's some miscommunication with the rudos that leads to Rocky Romero submitting to La Mística. We could all see that one coming. I thought it was a bit of a mess. I thought the work that was there was solid. Like I said, especially with Doki, new IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion Doki. But I don't know. I thought the main event was a little messy, a little off. It might as well. They should have ended with Kidd and Ultimo Guerrero on that end, And I mean, this match lasted 25 minutes, and it felt like it too. It felt like a real long fucking match. I don't know. Like I finished the pay-per-view and I was like, there are better CMLL matches on Friday nights. Most Friday nights are better than this. Like this would be if this had aired on a Friday night, it would have been a misstep. This hope this wasn't your first time watching, because It was fine, I guess. But it was fine, I guess, but also no. It was also not great. Okay, let's wrap this up. Because I also watched the Marigold Summer Destiny show. That happened this weekend as well, on July 13, 2024, from the Ryogoku Kokugigan, in Tokyo, Japan. 3,058 in attendance for that show. That's not good. That's not it. The Ryogoku, formerly known as Sumo Hall, is what, like 12,000 seats? And the way it's configured if you're filling up a third of the arena, a fourth of the arena, and especially one like this, and it looks empty, it's not good. And it sounds empty on top of that. And I don't know if it sounded empty because the crowd wasn't into it, because there wasn't a big crowd. I couldn't tell you. But this crowd sounded dead. It sounded like empty. The venue sounded empty. Now, I'm not trying to poo-poo on Marigold's parade here, but very quickly, we're going to have to realize that we can't be running these big wrestling venues like Sumo Hall, for instance, if we're going to draw a fourth of the attendance. That's just insane. And it doesn't come across as spectacular. Now, counter argument, no one's doing good in Japan outside of New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's the idea is that New Japan is not New Japan, excuse me. The idea is that Marigold, if they're not just Marigold, but all promotions in Japan right now outside of New Japan, they're not doing great. They're not doing great business. They just aren't. So it's not necessarily a crack on them. That I'm trying to. It's not necessarily a knock on them specifically. This is the nature of the business, right? This is absolutely what's going on right now. New Japan is the only company that's drawing decent gates right now. It's really the only one that's drawing decent gates. And the reason for this is because, well, pro wrestling still hasn't fully recovered from the pandemic in Japan. It still hasn't fully come back. It just hasn't, and that's yes, it's a shame. It's too bad, but we're absolutely still in a reconstruction period when it comes to Japan. So you can still make the argument, like Chad is saying, you can still make the argument that you'd be better off filling smaller venues, right? But how many times can you run Korakuen, for instance? You can't always do that. But maybe they overshot it. Maybe they were thinking too big. Maybe they thought Io Shirai showing up was going to do gangsta business for them, which it didn't. Which makes you wonder what kind of ticket sales they would have had if Io Shirai wasn't there, because you can absolutely assume via the reactions from the crowd and people in there with paraphernalia and whatnot, a lot of people had come to see Io Shirai. Io Sky. I'm sorry. Like, it will never sink into my head. I'm sorry, it just won't. Because there's a whole part of this show where people are just like completely dead. Just completely dead for the show. But then some other moments, and especially when Shirai came out for a match with Utami Hayashishita, then they came alive. I'm going to tell you, most of the undercard on this show, if you want to go back and watch it, is not interesting. Like, I don't think there was, there's things that happened on the undercard where you're like, I don't think it was all that great. I think Zeta Steel stinks. I think she's a bad pro wrestler. I think she stinks. So, that's someone you can absolutely move out of your, that you can already like skip. That's fine. But look, why don't I go to things that I do recommend? How about I do that? Because I do want to, we do need to wrap up eventually here. What I did like on the show was the finals for the United National title, right? Well, they had like a semifinal match and then the finals, which was weird because they had one semifinal match and then the winner of that match immediately moved into the finals, which was the next match against a wrestler who hadn't wrestled like in weeks, who had their semifinal match done like weeks ago, and then they're coming in, they're completely fresh. Made for an interesting story, don't get me wrong. But I thought Miku Aono defeating Mirai was very good. I think it was a bit of a surprise. I think a lot of people, myself including, were expecting Mirai to win. And this was a solid submission wrestling match with Mirai working over Aono's leg bars, stretch plum, and it builds into this really strong exchange between the two. Super physical, smartly put together, and Aono wins with a Styles Clash. This is probably am I about to commit heresy here? I think I like this better than the Utami Io Shirai match. Four stars. I thought this match was great. I think that's a 4-star match. I thought it was so good, and a completely other perception of Joshi. Like this was a really good wrestling match. I highly suggest you check it out. And even if you can't stand Joshi, if you're like, oh no, Joshi's not for me, this match might be for you. And then following that, immediately after, Aono, who won the match, who won the semifinal, had to face Bozilla immediately after in the finals. Yes, Bozilla, the breakout star of Marigold, who had wrestled weeks ago and was all fresh and just ready to go. She hits the ring. Look, this is one thing we have to keep in mind with Bozilla. She's so cool, and stands out in this universe of petite women, high flying, high octane action submission. She's just a brute force of nature. Like, you buy it. You buy the Bozilla thing. She is like Godzilla. She's absolutely just destructive. But she's green, and it shows. Like, she's what, 2 years into the business? It's fine. It's okay. Like, her 2 years in, she's already better than a lot of the goofballs on NXT. But you can tell she's still very green. we can't oversell we can't oversell what she is. But the role that she's in this company is tremendous. She's the beast to be conquered. She's tremendous in it too. And Aono in this match, I mean, the story of this match is so easy. Where Aono has to fight she has to fight from beneath. It's so simple a story, but it's really well done. And Bozilla, she's doing Vader bombs. Like someone's watching tape here. She's coming into the ring and and Chono's ringside, and she goes to say hi to Chono. And she knows what's going on here. And she does a spinning power bomb. And it's just great stuff. Now you can see that she's still green because the finish where Bozilla avoids a Styles clash, because that's Aono's finisher. I can't remember if I mentioned that. She avoids a style clash, and Aono sort of folds her over, rolls her into a pinning predicament, and that's how she wins. Bozilla sort of flubs it, and she's not quite sure how to follow through. That just comes with experience. That's just, so it's, again, like I don't want to sit here and overpraise her and say she's great, she's fantastic. The roles that she's given in the company are just perfect for her, right? Highlight the strengths and mask the weaknesses. It's exactly what they're doing with Bozilla, and people are going nuts with her. I think I've pronounced Bozilla 3 different ways. Bozilla? Or is it like, does it rhyme with Godzilla? Bozilla, I think. Tremendous win by the match was fine. I gave it like 3 1/4 stars. Like I thought it was entertaining as hell. Fun little match. Then we had the Io Shirai Utami Hayashishita match. Now don't get me wrong, just because I preferred another match on the card to this one, in fact 2 other matches to that one, doesn't mean that this was a bad match. I maybe give it a 3 3/4 stars. It was nice to see Io Shirai wrestling like Io Shirai again, like doing things where you're like, this is the Io Shirai I know. And it's in these types of situations where you're reminded that the AEW house style really does put clamps onto these wrestlers and to what they're capable of doing. It's just as simple as that. And it doesn't keep them from getting injured, and it doesn't, because they get injured anyway. Look, it was just nice. It was nice to see Io stretching her legs here, and you could feel like she really enjoyed wrestling in Japan back again. Like I think this was the first time. What did they say? Like in 6 years, 7 years, something like that. So that was that, and Utami, of course, was really into it. She ate shit in this match too. Like her face was full of welts after this match. Like Io was back. And she enjoyed every minute of this. This was a dream match for her, so good for her. And then we had the main event where Sari defeated Julia to become the very first Marigold World Champion. And I thought this match was tremendous. I thought it was great. I really, really thought this was a great match. I gave this match 4.5 stars. I think you should watch it. I think it's great. I think it's well worth your time. I don't think it's a match of the year. I don't think it was a perfect match. I don't think it was that good, but it was so very good. A great match, unquestionably. Like at the 10-minute mark, they're tying each other up into submissions. And Julia pulls off an avalanche butterfly suplex into an avalanche into a butterfly suplex. It was just great stuff. Avalanche fisherman's suplex by Sari and a pair of coup de grâces, which is, and they're not doing the one where the boots slip at the last minute. No, she's going straight for the ovaries. Pile driver by Julia on a table, which is great. And then both women start landing bombs on each other, strikes to the face, dropping each other on their heads. And I will always appreciate a match where people are dropping each other on their heads. And then there's the story of Julia's surgically repaired wrist that comes into play when Sareee takes the protective stuff off of her wrist and starts working the arm proper. And they're both bleeding from the mouth here from all the blows they've been taking, and they're going into near falls and dropping each other on their heads some more. Sareee goes back to the armbar. Julia doesn't submit, but the ref calls the match. A bit of a weird finish. I also get it in the story that they're telling, like Julia will never submit. She will never give up, you know. So the referee has to call the match for her safety. I get it. A weird finish, but I get it. You know, I'm thinking this is probably one of Julia's last dates, right? If not the last one, what would have been the problem of her, like, putting Sareee over clean, right? Was WWE really that invested in this and like, no, our girl can't lose kind of thing? And then Ross is like, yeah, but she can't win either because she's going away, you know? She really could have, I think we could have got a strong, definitive win for Sareee. And I think it would have gone a long way for Sareee as well. Saree's great. I mean, you know, with all this talk about Julia over the past few months or whatnot, Saree's often been kept out of the conversation but she is tremendous. She is very, very good. So ultimately, that's what I have to say about the Marigold show, the Summer Destiny show. I think there's 3 matches here that are worth your while. Everything else, it's okay, it's fine, or is completely forgettable. Very uneven, weird show as well with the empty arena. I don't know. Quickly, we're just gonna run down Slammiversary. It's happening in my neck of the woods, Verdun in Montreal, whatever you want to say, the Verdun Auditorium. You know, I used to watch a lot more. TNA, if you may recall, last year. Well, yeah, mostly last year before I was hospitalized, and I thought the show was really picking up something. I think there was something going on. You know, not everything was perfect, but I tuned into the pay-per-views and I thought they were good. And ever since Scott D'Amore has been fired, I was like, it's not the same. There's something off, and the shows haven't been great. So, you know, I don't watch the week to week, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay. Apparently, the Verdun Auditorium has 4,000 tickets sold, which is tremendous. Good for them. Of course, it's going to do good business here. TNA is well known in Montreal. I think this is a solid attendance. I'm curious as to how many people are traveling for this. Slammiversary is a huge show for TNA fans. Maybe there's people traveling from Ottawa. You know, Ottawa is like an hour and 45 minutes from Montreal. That's not all that far. You know, Montreal's not far from New York, from Vermont. I'm joking. I'm laughing, but this could be a travel show for TNA fans. There's a lot of TNA fans in Canada, so maybe. I mean, good for them. This will probably be one of their biggest gates in recorded history, in a long time anyway. Main event is going to be Moose versus Josh Alexander versus Steve Maclin versus Nick Nemeth versus Frankie Kazarian versus Joe Hendry in a 6-way elimination match for the TNA Championship. I hate this so much, but Do you want to bet 10 Canadian dollars that Joe Hendry's winning this because of all the attention he's been getting because of the NXT stuff? Do you want to bet? And this is a 6-way to protect Moose, and because honestly, you know, you put it on your best worker, which is Josh Alexander. You could probably put it on MacLeod too and make a lot of sense. But I would not put it past anyone in that company right now to decide on Joe Hendry. The idea has been pitched. And it is on the creative table, and someone has thought belting up Joe Hendry is a good idea. I 100% sure of it. And TNA will be a lot like NXT, where you're going to have the most mid-pro wrestlers being your top guys. Jordan Grace will be defending the TNA Knockouts World Championship against Dana Brooke, Ash by Elegance. I do not know. This is not going to be good. Dana Brooke, come on now. I got nothing for you. This is not going to be good. Jordan Grace cannot wait to get the hell out of this company. Mustafa Ali will be facing Mike Bailey in what has the potential to be the match of the night for the TNA X Division Championship. I have very high hopes for this. This is the reason I'm going to be watching. This is the one where I turn off the phone and I just sit back and watch it happen. AJ Francis versus PCO. Jesus Christ. I'm so done with PCO. And I've always been done with AJ Francis, so. Singles match for the TNA Digital Media Championship and the Canadian International Heavyweight Championship. What the hell is that? Oh my God. This is the... Oh, I see. This is AJ Francis getting some heat here. This is the old Lutte Internationale, the old Montreal Territories Canadian International Heavyweight Championship. This is an old one. It has the lineage and everything. It had been retired in 1987. Then TNA brought it back. Because AJ Francis purchased the rights, and that's going to get him the heat in Montreal. I hate this man so much. This is so cheap. Oh, PCO's going to win. PCO's a Montreal guy. They even made a burger for him at a burger chain in Quebec called La Belle et le Boeuf. They have a PCO burger right now. I tried to get one at the local at the local restaurant that we have here of the chain, but it's only available in the Montreal area. And then Alicia Edwards and Masha Slamovich will be taking on Dani Luna and Jordy Threat for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championship. Alicia Edwards is the odd woman out here. Everyone else rules. Masha rules, Dani Luna rules, Jody Threat rules. Keep Alicia Edwards to a bare minimum, and we're good to go. You're going to have yourself a fine little match. So there you go. I'll probably be reviewing this next week. In the midst of my G1 coverage, which will be beginning this Saturday, again, coming back at you this year, every day with a recap, a review of the G1 Climax 34. Every day that there is action, Warren Hayes will be here on YouTube, on your podcast application, breaking down the action, keeping you up to date, talking about potential winners, keeping an eye on trends, on stories that they're telling, points tallies, and then when we get closer to it, then we start breaking down. Scenarios, who's moving on, who's going to the playoffs, who's winning the block, all that stuff. Detailed analysis every day is waiting for you right here on the channel, right here on the podcast. That's starting this Saturday. So I'm excited about that. And we're going to do that for the entirety of the G1. From top to bottom, A to Z, I will be here. So that starts this week. Be sure to be there. Also be sure to be here on Thursday. Also be because of the AEW Dynamite review, which I do every week. I'll be back for that as well. And if it's your first time here on the channel, subscribe. I might have a G1 stream for you later this week. So that's exciting. As you can tell, I'm wrapping up the show right now. We're in the last throes of this week's Mr. Warren Hayes show. So I want to thank everyone for joining me. One last pitch for a like on the YouTube channel, a subscription, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, 5-star rating on Spotify. Everything helps. I will be back, like I said, on Thursday, and then on Saturday for the G1 Climax 34 coverage, starting, kicking off. You want to be there. It's going to be good this year. At least we're excited about it. It looks good. It looks promising. And I'm going to carry you all throughout it all. So everyone, thank you very much for joining me. For those of you who joined me live and for you listening on demand. And I will see you next time.